Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another story time with Gerald Community Library, and this is Gina again. So today's story is permissioned by a Learner Publishing Group, and the story today is Loudmouth George and the Fishing Trip by Nancy Carlson. George was always bragging. According to him, he ran the fastest and he ate the biggest pizzas. And he read the thickest books. So when Harriet told him she was going fishing on Saturday, of course George bragged that he caught the biggest fish. See? "If you're such a good fisherman," said Harriet, "why don't you come with us?" "I better not," said George. "I'd probably catch such a big fish it would sink the boat." Harriet didn't believe him for a minute. When she got home, she asked her dad if George could come with him on Saturday. "Sure," said Dad. "I'll give his parents a call." "Guess what, George?" said George's mother. "Harriet's father just called and invited you to go fishing tomorrow. Won't that be fun?" "Oh no," thought George. "Why did I brag so much? The biggest fish I ever caught was in the pet shop." Oh my. He's all worried. Early the next morning, they were off to the river. "George, I brought an extra fishing rod if you need it," said Harriet's mother. "As a matter of fact, I do. You see, the last time I went fishing, I hooked this enormous fish. It was so big, it broke my fishing rod," George bragged. He goes telling his big fish story. At last they were out on the water. "Here's a worm for your hook, George," said Harriet. That's kind of fun. "I thought you'd fished before," said Harriet. "Well, I have," George fibbed, "but we didn't use worms. We used other stuff." So Harriet baited George's hook. Then they sat and they sat. So there they are, waiting and waiting to see what they'd catch. And they sat. They sat for 3 hours, and no one got even a nibble. "I think we'll call it a day," said Harriet's father. "The fish just aren't biting today." They didn't catch anything. "Thank heaven," thought George as he started to reel in his line. Suddenly his bobber went down. "You got a fish, George," yelled Harriet. "Oh, wow," said George. "Help, what do I do?" "I thought you were the great fisherman," said Harriet. I guess I exaggerated a little bit," George confessed. "Help me." There he is, asking for help. He got something on the line. Do you think he got a big fish? Y'all ever been fishing before on a boat out in the lake, out in the water? "Keep reeling it in, George," Harriet told him. "It's the biggest fish ever," yelled George. You almost have it, George, said Harriet. Just keep reeling it in. It's so big, it will bite my hand off, yelled George. Do you think it's a big fish? Do you think he's reeling in a big fish there at the end of his line? Here it comes, said Harriet. Oops, said George. Better throw it back, George, said Harriet. It's too little to keep. Look at that little itty bitty fish. Can't keep it. It's too small. Well, it felt big, said George. Monday at school, George told Ralph all about the fishing trip. I caught a fish and it was this big, he said. There he goes, telling his friend how big of a fish he caught. How big, George? Said Harriet. Well, this big, said George. How big? Well, maybe it was only this big, said George. So it went from huge to that big and to itty bitty. But it sure put up a big fight. So there's the end of the story of George's fishing trip. Did y'all enjoy that story? Well, I hope you did. So stay tuned for activities and see you next time for our next story. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye.